Well, good evening. Shall we pause?
Good evening.
Om Paramatmane Namah Ata. So I only had one joke. Last week I started by saying, you're probably all wondering why I'm here, and I'm wondering the same thing in general. So anyway, we're here for a philosophy evening, and we have our guest Paul Mason. So you probably are wondering why I'm here, introducing him. So Paul's been talking all day, and he asked for a little break for a few minutes. So by way of introduction and giving Paul the break, I will maybe put it into context and give you the story. So we'll talk, I think it's for about an hour, we've got an hour and 10 minutes, and Paul has plenty to tell us on the topic, and then at the end we'll have questions and answers from the audience. If it's okay with you, I will repeat, unless you can really project your voice. Paul's hearing isn't the best, and his right ear is not so bad, so if you can project, well and good. If not, I'll repeat the question as best I can, so the shorter the better for me, so I don't get it wrong. Thank you. So, when I joined the school, I was fortunate to have as my tutor Shane Mulhall. And as I moved through the different levels of material, we had the Bible and Shakespeare and Plato, and then we got some of the Eastern scriptures like the Gita and the Upanishads, and then we started to get these conversations with Shantanand Saraswati, the Shankaracharya, and I was fascinated. I really loved the conversations, and I loved the fact that he was alive, and I couldn't believe that the school, these were conversations with the school. So Mr. Mahal was my tutor, his tutor was Mr. McLaren, and Mr. McLaren used to go to the Shankaracharya, whatever number of steps that is. So I had lots of questions. I was young and naive, and I wanted to know who the Shankaracharya was, where did he live, did he have a job, did he go on holidays, would he come to Ireland if we invited him, could you go and visit him? So apart from the philosophical side, I wanted to know about the biographical side, and eventually Mr. Mahal said, look, I don't know, we don't know, but go and find out and come back and tell me what you found out. So I was studying engineering, I didn't know anything about being a researcher, so I started to look around for bits of information, biographical information, which was not easy to get. And one thing I came across early on was a book called Darshan by a man called Frank Papantine, which is on 3 times in India. So he was in India 3 times, really as a follower of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And 2 of the visits, the first one and the last one, there are a lot of photographs of the Maharishi sitting at the feet of this man, the Shankaracharya, Shantanand Saraswati. So I was delighted with this. I couldn't get a lot more information. And the only place I could get the book was from a website run by a man called Paul Mason. So it seemed a lot of information about Shantananda was available because they were brother disciples of their teacher, who was Brahmananda Saraswati, Guru Dev. So I looked for a book on Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, which I found and bought. And it turned out the book was written by Paul Mason. So there are a few extracts in the book about Shantananda. So I started to email Paul Mason and said, do you have any more information? He was in this or that event. And he was very gracious and would email me back. And every time he emailed me, he would sign off Jai Guru Dev. Jai Guru Deva. So it turned out that Paul was very interested in the Maharishi, but more interested in his teacher and Shantananda's teacher, Guru Dev Brahmananda, who was the previous Shankaracharya of the North. So he would ask me, and I knew very little about Guru Dev, and I would ask him a lot about Shantananda, so that all worked very nicely. All of a sudden, out of the blue, actually I just made this connection today. I mentioned the Beatles song at lunchtime, and I checked, so there's a very interesting fact about that. NASA, for the first time ever, broadcast a message, a deliberate message into outer space. I mean, we've lots of, all our radio and TV is all going everywhere. But they sent a message to outer space to a star called Polaris, and they broadcast a song. And the song was the Beatles song, All Across the Universe. And they did that in 2008. And that was around about the time I got in touch with Paul, which is very curious. Now, it can't have bounced off Polaris and came back because it's going to take 231 years to get there. It's so far away. But I just think that's interesting. And then shortly after that...
You mentioned the chorus is...
Oh, yes, sorry. The chorus is Jai Guru Dewa. So if you listen to the song, it's unbelievable. It's a great song. So out of the blue, Paul sent me this book as part of our occasional email correspondence. And he said, this is a book you might be interested in. I think it's about your guy, Shantananda. He said, I don't think it's about Brahmananda, so I won't be translating it, but there you go. So I was chuffed, and it turned out this is a book it's a biography of Shantananda written by Vasudevananda, who was the current Shankaracharya. It was printed in 1983. So I was delighted to get it. I could not read a word of it because it's all in Hindi. So Rutger put me in touch with... Now, sorry, I shouldn't take too long about this. There's a great story about the book. Rutger put me in touch with somebody. I got a sort of a translation, and the school in London came to hear of it. And Mr. Lambie said, OK, we'll take it from here, thank you. And they did. And this is the book that's mentioned at the end of the tradition booklet this year, where Jeremy Sinclair says, we're still waiting for the thumbs up from Vasudevananda to publish the book on Shantananda. So when you read that, this is the book. This is the school in England's translation. Dr. Horan gave me a copy and gave Paul a copy. It's not for copying or anything. It's just to have a look at. But it's fantastic. And it's just a strange coincidence that this is happening at the same time as Paul is here. And also our tradition booklet has about 3 pages, coincidentally, on Brahmananda Saraswati. Do you all have a copy of this? No? So you know the way we get a tradition booklet every year. It's usually printed. This year it hasn't been printed yet. So there are about 3 pages. So the coincidences are just staggering. So in all my engagements with Paul, I often thought it would be nice because the school is so keen on the tradition and the lineage back to Shankara, indeed. So about 7 years ago, 7.5, Paul corrected me last week, I asked Paul would he come and give a talk in Townley Hall on Teachers' Day, and I'm pretty sure it was Dr. Horan said, great idea, and it just didn't happen for various reasons, and then COVID came along, and then out of the blue, Paul, we were communicating a little bit, he said, listen, by the way, I know it didn't happen, if you would like a talk, I think I'd be happy to give a talk now. So I said, delighted. So I said it to Dr. Horan, would he like to have Paul Mason deliver a talk? And he said, love to. So he didn't. Originally, I thought it would be the weekend that I'm on my residential, which is this one. And Dr. Hen said, no, he needs to come over for both of them. So this is his second visit to Ireland, and hopefully he's caught his breath. The format Dr. Horan suggested was that I just lead with a few questions, but I won't be doing the talk at all. So Paul, by way of a little bit of background information, he's not a member of any school or organisation. He doesn't really do that. He calls himself a maverick and an independent, and he's a researcher. He has published lots of books about Brahmananda. This is 3 of them, and he has taught himself Hindi and Sanskrit so he can translate the original documents. So I just thought it would be a fantastic opportunity to hear from Paul. Is that okay?
I didn't call myself a maverick. No, my publisher...
Oh, your publisher did? Oh, sorry, yeah, that was...
And like yourself, I had to look it up. It's like, hey, what is all this maverick stuff? But it actually came out okay. I quite liked it.
Okay.
It means the guy who wouldn't brand his cattle.
Yeah.
Everybody else was prepared to brand their cattle other than this guy called Maverick. And I think, well, yeah, I mean, that's right. You don't want to do... if I had cattle, I wouldn't brand them either. So I must be a Maverick.
He's also a hitchhiker still. I keep trying to relieve him of his bags, but he's got his passport, he's got traveller's checks, his toothbrush. He's ready to go anywhere. He's got one here and one here.
All right, you want to see the passport. There we go.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's the introduction. Hopefully he's caught his breath. And so maybe to start the presentation, Paul, you might just explain how you came across this tradition and encountered Brahmananda Saraswati, taking the first step to lead you to where you are now.
Well, thank you for that introduction. It has given me a breather, and thanks for your question. I mean, where does anything start? I made lots of little connections with India through my childhood, lots of curiosities. There was a guy who lived up the road who used to give me honkers, the old colonel, and he would tell me about times in India. You know, something special about personal accounts. There was a master at school who did the same, and on behalf of the other kids in my class, I'd say, oh, can you tell us about when you're like in India and you did this? And the rest of the lesson was cancelled, you know. And he'd sit cross-legged up on his table and recount these amazing tales of getting swamp fever and that. So many's the time I got everybody out of work. And that's what sort of a guy I am, I guess. It's bad, isn't it? That's Mavericks at a childhood level. So at some point, I mean, I enjoyed my childhood enormously, perhaps too much. And I got to a point where I taught myself meditation without hardly thinking it, without realizing what meditation should be. And I thought, well, I'll just sit down and close my eyes. And I settled. And I used to do that on a daily basis. I used to go work in a factory, Epox resin factory, Epox resin casting factory. And I'd come home and I'd sit down on my chair and I'd close my eyes. And something very special happened. I can still remember it all. And it was a long time ago because I'm not 18 anymore, I confess. And something special was happening because when I opened my eyes again, everything looked good in the room. I got my clothes hung on around the room and there was posters and guitars and stuff. And I looked around and like, wow, this is wonderful. And it never occurred to me it was because I was doing this meditation, because it wasn't really meditation. It was just a settling, a pausing, a relaxation. It wasn't serious. There was no object. And I just like settled, like a feather settles, or like a restless mind settles into a... I don't know if anybody saw Star Trek and Odo got into his bucket. He melted in. At the end of the day, he was a transformative person. And instead of going to bed, he'd step into a bucket and just become liquid. So there's a bit of that going on. You have to stretch your imagination, I admit. I didn't tell him last week. I'm building up. So basically, I taught myself to relax, but it wasn't. Something was bothering me, and I went into the front room of my mum's house, and she had a globe and I spun the globe, and very cosmic, and then it slowed down, and I started to study it. I mean, I wasn't a very good student at school because I was too busy rebelling. You know, it was more important to me to rebel than it was to listen. And looking at this orb, I suddenly realised where everything was. It's like, oh, Brazil, far out. Oh, the Holy Land. Oh, and I got really engaged in looking at it. And I thought, you know, I think I'll travel. I think that's the answer to my dilemma. Because I think my dilemma was a spiritual depression. I think I felt I had a religious upbringing, and I think I felt a hankering for like the reality of whatever it was that they were talking to me about. There was a sort of hollowness. And so I decided to go, and I asked my Italian girlfriend, I'm going to India, what do you reckon? And she was thrilled at the prospect. Don't ask me why. I think there's something quite mad about deciding to hitchhike to India. It would be today, and it was then. No different. People say, oh, people don't hitchhike these days, but they didn't then either. We managed to get all the way from England to India without spotting anybody else hitchhiking on that route, other than 2 Yugoslav guys. And Yugoslavians are mad anyway, so we've dispensed with that topic. So what am I saying? Yeah, we hitchhiked, and it was powerful. You know, we taught meditation, but meditation has all sorts of connotations, and travelling is a funny sort of a gig. It's a bit of a meditation. You're constantly pondering and watching, and things are constantly changing but staying the same. So you can't really validate it as a meditation, but I would have argued it at the time. I would have said, no, that's what I do. And like, for instance, going two days with one lift across Iran, going to Tehran, it's endless mountain ranges and sand and mosques. Beautiful, absolutely stunning experience. So, what am I saying? We got to India finally, and it was a long haul. It really was. That's a whole night's discussion about the actual stuff. So I got to India, and I thought, well, yeah, this idea of this being some religious pilgrimage, it isn't. It's just I don't know what I'm doing in India. I was perplexed. I'm not making it up. It was nice to be there. It was reassuring we hit target. There was a nice feeling, but I didn't know why. And I asked somebody, I said, do you know where Adi Shankara is?
The musician.
Because, yeah, I'd heard of Adi Shankara. He played, and I quite like all that stuff. And so I wanted to meet the guy, and perhaps we talked music, you know. And they said, well, he's in Bombay. And like Bombay to Delhi, mucho. And bear in mind, we'd already travelled all the way from Britain, so I was like, oh, that's a bit of a haul. And then, well, what about this other guy, this philosopher guy, you know, in the white, and I couldn't pronounce it, but, you know, like macaroni, maharashi, or whatever. And it's like, oh, yeah, he's up in Rishikesh. Well, I don't know where Rishikesh. I said, where's that? And he said, well, you go Meerut, Hardwar, and then Rishikesh. It's like, oh, it's just up the road. So we start to hitchhike there, and this guy pulls up in a car, and he gives us a wad of money when we get out the car. And I said, well, what's that for? He said, for the bus fare. Oh, pretty good. Do you know, like, we're living the life now. We're actually catching a bus. So we went to Hardwar, and he'd given us, like, his business card. So we stayed in their own private ashram, the JK ashram. It's like their family and other families. They don't go to run-of-the-mill public things. They've got their own little ashram to go to. It suited me fine. And our room opened onto the Ganges. Like we're really here. We're in a holy city. We're next to the Ganges. It was a bit good. So next morning, we're off, and we got to Rishikesh, I think on the bus, another bus ride. And we get there, and there's something strange in the atmosphere. There's something exquisitely peaceful, excitingly, exquisitely peaceful, which I'd never experienced anywhere else on the planet. So I think I'm very curious about where this is emanating from. And we're on a horse tanga. It's one of these vehicles where there's a poor horse being whipped, and there's a guy whipping him, and you're shouting out, don't whip him. You know, that experience, which is absolutely horrible, and I wouldn't do it again, but, you know, it's a one-off. You find out the hard way what you like and what you don't like. And he took us down to the riverfront, to Shivananda's Ayurvedic clinic. We waited there outside the post office for what seemed an eternity, which was nice. In the sun, on the sand. And I thought, I really love this place. It's magical. We went over on the ferry. That was another totally magical experience. It was so gentle and so beautiful. And you could see all the fishes in the river. Oh, I don't know, I travelled too long and I yearned for some sort of paradise. And here I was in paradise. And Swag Ashram is actually, that's what it is, it's paradise. And Swag is paradise, heaven. So it wasn't wishful thinking, it was actually, it's the address, Swag Ashram. You got it, it's so obvious, people should have dialed that up, So some guy stops and says, will you come with me for drink, Indian people are very friendly. And he took us for a Fanta, which was an exciting experience. And then he said, have you got somewhere to stay? And I said, we don't know anything. And he said, well, you stay at Vednikatan Ashram. And he wrote it down for me. So we went to Vednikatan Ashram, and we paid 1 rupee to stay there for a night, which was quite a modest amount, because that was about a shilling. No, it was less than a shilling. Old money. Sorry, I'm taking you all back, aren't I? Shillings. So after that, we went to see this Maharishi guy. But on the way, it was just like magic. There was like hundreds of butterflies that we were going through. And it's enough to make you dizzy. It's enough to make you think you're on drugs. It was fantastic. Being back to nature, going in the jungle, and then climbing up the hill, which was a bit of an effort, to be honest. Even then I was out of condition. What?
Up the hill to the ashram.
Up the hill to the ashram. And there was a sign there saying, like, no entry or something. And I think, I don't like these people. They put up signs, I was that much of a hippie. Any sign of authority, like, do not, I'm against this, Anyway, the guy that met us was a guy called, help me, what was his name? I've got a mental blank. Anyway, he's German. And
I forget his name.
Difficult for him. Andreas Müller. Okay. I'm a bit talked out, so the brain's like, Andreas Müller. And he's German. It's like, I don't expect to find a German guy when I go and see Maharishi. It's like, no, that doesn't work. And I said, well, where is he? And he said, oh, he's lecturing in North America or something. I thought, what's that about? Like, moi has arrived. It's like, he is not here. And I'd worked out on the way up there that I had 2 topics that I could engage him with, because I thought he was a philosopher. And I thought, well, I could say, I discovered it's not possible simultaneously to be happy and not happy. You can be unhappy and you can be not, you can be unhappy and you can be happy, but simultaneously you can't be. And I thought that was something worth discussing with him in my clever dick way. And the other one was that I travelled a lot on the tube in London, and just as an experiment, I tried going through the no entry signs. Because it always says exit, and sometimes it says no entry. And we've done it, we've said it, maverick and all that, I had to try going through the no entry signs. And without a doubt, I always got to the road much quicker. And I thought, I have discovered something. I have found some sort of thing, a code, And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought that that I would get the answers to the universe with an observation like that. Now, at least I'd get a cup of cocoa and a chat. But he wasn't there, which was like, oh, wow, whatever. And he said, but look, read this little leaflet. And he gave me a leaflet called Right and Wrong. And I took it away and I read it. And he also said, come back and speak to Bevan Morris. Well, Bevan Morris then was this very slim, tall, spotty, bearded, long-haired Australian guy. And now he's like the backbone, he's the head honcho of the TM movement of Maharishi the university and all the rest.
And you met him there?
Well, yeah, he was the one who gave me the talk on meditation. And he was a little bit cheeky because he said, if you meditate, you hear better. If you like music, you hear it better. He knows I like music. It's like, oh, that's a trick. Now I have to learn meditation. So I'm not that stupid, you know. I know what you're up to. So the next day, we've completely forgotten that we've undertaken to have this initiation. So we get on the ferry to go back over to Rishikesh because we need to get some Grabinski, a pan to cook in and things like that. And I suddenly remember, I thought, you know, we've got to go and get initiated. Not only that, we've got to get some flowers, we've got to get a handkerchief, we've got to get fruit. We're in trouble. We're supposed to be up the hill, and we're supposed to get all these things in this holy village. I mean, it's not like they didn't have hotels. There's no department stores. There's nothing. And it's like, we might be able to get the fruit. And then we went to a cloth shop, and he tore some off a bale, you know. So, you know, a few pice it cost. But no flowers. There's no, you know, they don't have interflora. They don't do that. You know, they don't have that many flowers growing. You know, I mean, it's like probably somewhere somebody's got some flowers. So we went up a bit crestfallen and shamed and sort of said, we haven't got any flowers. And he was really hacked off. It was pretty obvious. But because he's a meditation teacher, he didn't get hacked off. You know, there's that situation. Is he hacked off or isn't he? You know? And he said, oh, you help yourself, you know, you pick them in the garden. But there weren't many flowers, so it's obvious he wasn't that keen on it. But we did. We picked them out of his very garden. And he said, I haven't taught meditation for a while. He said, I must go and check my notes. And I thought, like, what is going on here? I mean, it's true, and it does tally, and it's right. But to me, as a novice, I was like, I don't know what he's up to at all. And then I had an interview, and it was quite nice, because it's always flattering when somebody puts a lot of attention on you, and he's like, you know, have you read any spiritual books? And, you know, did you go to church? And I say, yeah, I was a Christian Scientist, and I've read this book, and I didn't tell him that I got out of the Christian Science movement when I was 13, because the Christian Science teacher said that God is everywhere. And I said, you sure about that? And she said, yeah. I said, what, in the light bulb? She said, yeah. I said, in the table? She said, yeah. And I thought, I'm not very convinced, because, like, I'm sensing nothing special other than the light and no. And the next week, I didn't turn up at Sunday school. I actually went for a long walk in Putney, where I lived in London. And I don't know why, but I discovered a public house. And my family was teetotal, so I didn't know really even the effects of it, other than the gulp that I'd taken from a bottle at my uncle's, like poison, but it made my head spin. So, okay, so instead of going to church, I went to this pub. So I digressed. Sorry about that.
So back to your initiation for meditation. So
I went to the initiation, and he talked me into it. I wasn't that keen, but he was saying how easy it is to find the source of creative intelligence, which is God. And I'm thinking, wow, it's that easy. What, you just sit down and, you know, that's a good number. I want it now, you know. I changed my attitude completely. I don't want to go over to Rishikesh and get food. I want to get God, you know, just like that. It sounds good. We'll do that today.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend went in first, and I'm a bit teasy about it because she gets hit on a lot, you know, in all these countries that we've gone to, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, here we go again. She's going down into the basement with this guy, and he's leery, you know. It's like, here we go again. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, you're causing yourself grief here. Just let go. So I'm teaching myself to relax. Yeah. Just let go of those thoughts. Yeah. So I'm getting there before I'm being taught to meditate. I'm already doing it outside because he's in there with my girlfriend. Oh, man. And then it's my turn. She comes up and she said, he wants you. Like, oh, yeah, it's me. And she's all right. You know, she's not dishevelled. I don't think anything bad's gone on, you know. So, oh, that's a relief. Because it's a responsibility travelling with a woman. I was once offered a pound weight of hash to sell her for like quarter of an hour. And when I balked at that, and the guy thought I was negotiating, he threw in a bicycle as well. That's true. It is true. These are true words. And she was well hacked off. Right, I'll leave it at that. Anyway, come back to the meditation. And we do this funny puja. Puja is some sort of ceremony in front of this portrait, which I think was larger than this. I think it was like that big. But it's like this dude, this serious-looking monk in the picture. You want to know my first meeting with Brahmananda? There it is. That's what I didn't do last week. I should have done. I printed this since. So, where can you put it somewhere? So, I was taught the meditation, probably the same as you. I was given a mantra which was all very mysterious and which didn't bother me at all. And I was taught how to use it gently. Don't stress on it. Let it come and go. Don't worry about it. Settle down. And I was doing great. And then something happened. And then there was like this activity suddenly within me. And there was this spiral of energies within me. And there was these, what I now would describe as devata, spiritual energies in the shape of a female form wearing saris. And they're all looking at me, but not eye to eye. They're looking at something within me. And it freaked me out. And I liked it. I owned to that. It was like special. It was like, I'm being visited. And more to the point, I'm being checked out. Mm-hmm. They want to know who it is who's sitting here and what they're about. It's a very strange experience. And then I remember what Andreas had told me. When you're sitting in meditation, if thoughts come, just let the thoughts go and return to the mantra. And I thought, well, I suppose I am thinking. No, I definitely am, because I'm paying attention to these beautiful, graceful visitors. And it's suddenly ping, gone. It's like somebody turned off the remote control. I'm left, bereft. I like that poetry. Get that. Bereft. Right, no. And I'm just sitting there like, what have I done? I just turned off a celestial visitor or what? I'm totally confused and I'm thinking, why have I done this? I have to say I've regretted it ever since. There's no doubt. So I think, okay, right, I'll be attentive to what Andreas said and I'll practice this meditation fastidiously. And I went back to it. It was very pleasant. And I realised that I was settled, that there was no coming and going of thoughts. But I thought a slave to what he told me to do, which was, if you're thinking, return to the mantra. And I'm thinking, well, I am thinking about thinking. I'm not thinking, but the witness side of me is aware that I'm not thinking, and therefore I'm thinking about not thinking. So I got a bit confused. And I thought, oh, I didn't sit down to do this. I sat down to contact God. Simple. That's what they made it out to be. And so I made a decision which was a bit naughty, and that was to bypass sitting there with a mantra all the time, and decided to just let go of thought. And I thought, okay, well, I understand now. It was like a little bit of a message coming out, a bit of a creative message. I don't know how many of you have bought like a power tool or something like that, and it's written in Chinglish, and there's something wrong with it that you have to put this nut on, or you have to twist this lever, and you have to use your own creative imagination. You have to add something to the process. I'm a practical person, I know it. Whatever the thing I have to do, I have to bring some extra little bit to the project, and that's all I felt I was doing. I wasn't being naughty, really. I was just bringing some extra bit. So I thought, well, I just won't bother with the thoughts. Just not bother with the mantra, not bother with the thoughts. I will get there, by the way. Honest. And I did that. I abandoned thought. And I sat there just listening. And I listened, and I heard like bugs. Bear in mind, I'm in the basement of Maharishi's cottage, as it was known as. And I can hear like grasshoppers or whatever it is outside, which was kind of nice. And I could hear the clip, clip, clip of the Mali, the guy chopping the roses, tidying them up out in the garden. And that was the last thing that I heard. And I found myself, within myself, just total being, just totally awake and aware, with no thought, with no comprehension of anything, hardly even my breath. And gradually some body awareness came on me, and I was aware that I had legs. Okay, let's get this right. I still have legs. And it was like, oh, how marvellous. I've got a body. People often talk in religious terms about being born again. And I kind of think that that's what was going on. This so-called pilgrimage that I was on had actually found its point. Mm-hmm. That I'd actually let go of Paul Mason. I'd actually let go of any concept of my limitedness. And it was rather enjoyable, rather free. And I was sitting there just like, okay, I'll use my goofing. It's like, wow. And then I heard a voice, and it said, now slowly stop thinking the mantra and sit for a few minutes, just easily and relaxed, and gradually open the eyes. I was thinking it was somebody talking to me. I can hear them. And I eventually opened my eyes, and it was Andres. I go, yeah, it's that guy's... I got it. And I looked over the other side of the room, and there's Yolanda, my girlfriend. It's like, wow, she's here as well. And it was just totally ridiculous, because we'd had a rather intense involvement, my girlfriend and I. And there was no intensity. I was totally unfettered. It was like, oh, it's great to see Yolanda. There was no kind of, oh yeah, but all the undertones and overtones. It's gone. And then somebody knocked at the door, and it was a pair of Indian people that had come up to me outside of the ashram and asked me whether I was a disciple. That's what they called me. They said, are you disciple of Maharishi? And I'm thinking, don't know, couldn't answer that. And they put their heads through the door, and I just couldn't stop laughing. So that's my story of getting...
So, how did that lead to Brahmananda, to Maharishi's teacher?
Well, over a period, I got this habit of meditation, and I got back to the UK. I came back here to Britain, and I did, apart from getting a job and settling down and utilising this newfound knowledge of being able to settle down quite easily, I didn't have a hobby. And I thought, well, I need to find out where I've been to India. I need to find out what they believe. I found a few things out about what karma is and dharma. I started to get interested, but I didn't know very much. And when I got back, I started getting little leaflets about Hinduism. And I went to see the Maharishi mob, and I wanted to know about where the teaching was coming from. And I found out nothing. And I found one little book called Love and God, which gave a very potted bio of, sanitised if you want, of Gurudev. And that frustrated me. And also, I couldn't get sound tapes of Maharishi. So it led to me, the researcher. It's like, now I know I've got to find out all the things that I'm being deprived of. And I amassed a huge amount of recordings of Maharishi. And I amassed everything that there was to find out about the man, really. So I was doing all right, but I couldn't find out anything about Swami Brahmananda Saraswati. So I went to India on a return visit, this time properly doing the job, went on the Emperor Ashoka, the aeroplane with Air India, and I went up into the mountains. Really difficult because you couldn't get maps of the area. It was a no-go zone. You couldn't go there. It was secret. It's a special area. It's the land of the gods. The special temples are there. And one of the places that I went was Jyotirmath. And when I was at Jyotirmath, or what they called Joshimath, I was staying near to the monastery, and I found somebody reading a book about Gurudev. I could not believe my luck. He was actually reading the Hindi biography of Gurudev, and I wanted it, give me. And he took me up there to get the book, and I not only found the book, the biography, I found another book with 108 discourses, and I said to myself rather impulsively, right, I'll learn Hindi, and I will translate these, and I will get them published, and I will share them with the world. It's the sort of thing you do just impulsively, you make these ideas. And some years later I realised what a part I've made of myself, that I've made this pact.
Decision.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, you've got a lot of work there, buddy. Mm-hmm. But I did it, and I was working on it, and then I went back to India again. This time, again I was on my own, but I chatted to somebody in a cafe, and they were up for hiring a cab with me, and we went up to Jyotirmath again, and I found another book. It's like, wow, got another book to translate. I'm not Happy Bunny, but I've got this responsibility now. It's like, just so long as it's just the three. Okay, so there's three, isn't it? But as luck would have it, somebody wrote to me who was the son of the guy who was a security guard of Gurudev. Gurudev was a Shankaracharya of northern India, as was Swami Shantanand. Swami Shantanand was Gurudev's chosen, how do you call it? My word. Successor. I knew there was Asa in it somewhere. And he chose him in a will of December 1952 to be his successor. I think he chose him because of how similar he was to himself, that he was uncorruptible, that he was 100% sincere, and they're rare qualities. Most people have their divided mind. They want success, they want some money, they want some applause, all sorts of stuff. And Shantanand seemingly passed the tests with Brahmananda, else he wouldn't have named him in his will. There were tons of other disciples. He had umpteen disciples around him. And he chose... Swami Brahmananda had met with Shantanand some years before he made him a sannyasi. He didn't always make people sannyasis immediately, but Shantanand went and asked him to. He went to Allahabad and said, could he be a sannyasi? And he was put through various tests, and I think they became very warm to each other. And in fact, Shantanand, when he became Shankaracharya, I have copies of his house newspaper, and I found just recently, hot off the press, I found 2 speeches he made where he was actually quoting Brahmananda. He was giving his bit, and then he was like quoting Brahmananda extensively. The audience last week put me on my mettle and sort of said, what's the connection? Well, the connection is that he was quoting him all the time. And as Declan knows, yesterday, this is fresh information, I was looking in my cupboard of things that I've picked up over the years, and I found a little booklet about Shantanand that he made back from 1969. And this was printed on the Heidelberg press at Maharishi's ashram. So Maharishi's organisation were actually doing all the publishing for Shantanand. There's a close relationship between the two brother disciples. And I was amazed when I looked at the back of this booklet that not only was Shantanand's publications there, but the majority of the publications actually advertised were about Gurudev. So his commitment to the Guru was absolutely astonishing. Most people, I think, in how many years is that? 53 to 69, that's 16 years. They got their feet under the table. These are my books, and basically 70-80% of that list was about Gurudev.
Brahmananda.
Absolutely. So in answer to whoever it was last week, I doubt if they're still here, not after a whole week, they're indivisible. And in fact, on the speech that Shantanand made when he retired and where he deferred to Swami Vishnu Devanand, do we have a picture? No, we don't have a picture of Vishnu Devanand. Oh well, that's right now.
We have him in this one.
He's in there, yeah. He actually, again, quoted Gurudev. He said, people wonder, that's him, yeah. People wonder that, when you're a spiritual teacher, when you teach the scriptures, and you've got a property, that you can walk away from it, you're attached to it. And he said, I'm happy to pay the fees for leaving. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a really he even used the word fees rather than some Hindi word. I thought that's classic. I'm even prepared to pay the fees. And then he quoted Gurudev. He said, but any wealth you've only got because of Gurudev's kripa, his grace. So here he is, 28 years on, still talking about Gurudev. So to that person I say, they were indivisible. He worked for Gurudev. He didn't want to be Shankaracharya. But then I ought to tell you that Gurudev didn't want to be Shankaracharya. He was offered the post in 1908. After he'd been discovered in the jungle, there'd been a shooting, there'd been a man-eating tiger on the loose, and the man-eating tiger had been shot by the Prime Minister of Nepal. And the poor beast was bleeding, but managed to lope off. And they hunted down the tiger, and they found him lying at the feet of Gurudev, Swami Brahmananda, and overheard Brahmananda pacifying, saying, like, baby, translating Hindi, baby, be peaceful, and washing its wounds. They were pretty astonished to find this guy looking after a man-eating tiger and talking sweet nothings to it. And then it got up and left. And he refused to talk to them. When they went for an audience with him, he refused to talk to them. He could be quite austere. So they went back to Nepal, and they returned with one of their pandits who wanted to field some questions to Gurudev. And he disabused them of all the conundrums. Some of these wiseacres have got like a whole batch of stuff they can't figure out, like physicist's code or something. And he just answered them. It's like, so consequently, that guy wrote to Varanasi saying, I've found who you need for the post of Shankaracharya. There hadn't been an official Shankaracharya for 165 at that time, about 140 years. Oh, yeah. But he held out for 33 years. You know, like when you go for an interview, they say, well, do you want the job or not? Then you don't have to answer right now. You know, if you let us know. It's like 33 years. I've given you guys the runaround for 7.5 years. I mean, it's not arrogance on my part. It's because I didn't think that I could fulfill what I was being asked to do. I was being asked to give a talk about Swami Brahmananda, and I didn't feel that I could do that. I could only do it on an intellectual basis. Now I've got a bit closer to the guy. We're pals, I think. You know.
You and Brahmananda.
Yeah. Somebody last week said, would you describe yourself as a devotee? And that was an awkward moment because it's not something I think about. And I said, well, I would kneel to him. I would bow my head. I would defer to him. But I didn't answer their question. And I'm no closer to answering their question because I don't even know what a devotee is. It's like, it means you're on especially good terms. I don't know. I like the idea, but I don't know. But we have got closer together, and I've actually sung the praises of Swami Shantanand.
Indeed, you have.
Since I first heard about him. When I went to my publisher with the idea of writing a biography of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, I told him, I said, well, he used to be the clerk. That's what he was. He was the clerical assistant to the ashram. He wasn't an initiate to the ashram. He was a dog's body, like we all are, do you know? And that's not to put him down, but that's what he was. He was a clerk. And I said he was in... his master was the Shankaracharya of Jyotirmath. And Michael Mann, his name was, he lit up, he said, hang on a minute. And he raced over to a shelf, not unlike that shelf over there. And he plucked a book out, you know, because he's got multiple titles that they published. He sort of, have a look at this. And it was good company. The paperback. And he said, here. And it's like, not every day somebody gives you a present. You know, I like that. That I've got a free paperback after having gone all the way to Somerset. So I felt good. And it's like, wow. And I read that book, and it's got such a light touch. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what you don't want to misunderstand. The teaching is personalised. My own way of imparting things is impersonalised. Impersonalised? No, personalised. But basically, you're all talking about the same thing. You're talking about samadhi, you're talking about things that matter spiritually, and it doesn't matter how they're done, so long as it's effective. And the styles of Brahmananda and Shantanand are different. Shantanand tends to be a storyteller. Do you not notice? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he tells brilliant stories, and sometimes when I read Brahmananda, I think he'd have made a good stand-up comedian, because for his time, like 40s, early 50s, he was saying things that were deliberately provocative and were going to get his audience rippling with laughter. And sometimes they were a bit iffy. Mm-hmm. You know, for a very austere, dignified man, sometimes he resorted to slightly iffy remarks, which I found incredible. I mean, it's like, if I repeated those as in stand-up, you'd be rippling, because he had good material. He knew how to make his audience laugh. They're different, but they're the same. And I tried to write on that circular that I'd given to you, is that the thing about him was that he tasked himself with being the representative, that the Jagat Guru, the universal Guru of their culture. I say their culture, I could say our culture, but I will say their culture, the Indian culture, the Bharatiya culture, the Sanatana Dharma. And his primary task was to lift up and revitalize the Indian population. Mm-hmm. We were the oppressors. Why would he want to pick us up and get us to learn anything? We were the oppressors, not me personally. I'm not speaking on a person, and I have no remorse for what this country did. I don't know. It's like it's got nothing to do with me. I'm not going to go there. But why should Gurudev give a fig about Westerners? Mm-hmm. He wasn't interested in Western science. He made all sorts of disparaging remarks about Westerners. I don't say he hated them. In fact, he was so revered. He was known by one of the future presidents of India as Vedanta incarnate. I don't know how much you use the word Vedanta here, do you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Advaita Vedanta, yeah.
And, that's pretty kind of high title.
Mm-hmm.
He was buddies with the president then. He was buddies with the ruling peoples. He met with Mahatma Gandhi. He did what he could in his lifetime to revive everything. As I was telling Rutger earlier, it was his stimulus that created the new awareness of Sanskrit. He set up a Sanskrit school in 1938, well ahead of the game. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. Whether it was a childhood thing, the fact that he used to like it, or whether... because he wasn't fixated with Sanskrit. He'd pepper his talks with occasional references. So he was obviously very knowledgeable. He'd left home at... I'm cued in. He left home at 9 years old. He'd run away from home when he realised that he was queued up to have a child marriage. I don't know what you guys would have done at 9 years old, or you guys, these days that's gender neutral. I hope you realise that. I mix with a lot of Americans one way or another. And we've inherited their wretched language. I'm sorry about that. But guys is now, it's not just guys, it's guys and girls. So how would you feel at 9 years old being told who you were going to marry? It's like our way of looking at it is romance. Even at 9, you've got the idea that maybe you find some girl who was that bit more inclined towards you, or friendlier, or somebody you could go and have a sit and have a sensible chat with. So how was he to respond? He just legged it. And he legged it in the way that only he would. He was a child saint. And he could engage with adults on very, very high level discussions. And he would do so, and he'd shame his adult accusers of running away or whatever. And he walked up the River Ganga many, many, many miles for day after day without eating and that. The guy was a hermit right from 9 years old. He didn't discover being a hermit at some midlife crisis. So many people in India have got a backstory of like incidents at home. Either they've fallen out with their family, or they've fallen out with their wife, or they've fallen out with the children, or fallen out with everyone, or have no family, or are ill, or whatever. Very few of them. You might say, how do you know? I've researched it. No, I have a book. They've done an analysis of all the sadhus who were living in Rishikesh, which was the hub in the old days. They used to have tons of ashrams. No spiritual tourists, just sannyasi and sadhus. And they did an analysis, and they asked some questions. And it's great to find out the reality, because most of us want to know. Mm-hmm. It's like, how come they threw up their lives? Well, mainly because their lives were disasters, that's why. and Gurudev decided his life would be a disaster at 9 if he stayed at home. And yet he came from a wealthy family, like the Buddha. many before him, he had an easy childhood. You know, as Maharishi said, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, which must be very uncomfortable.
So he took to the spiritual life essentially at 9.
Yeah. And he argued the right. They pulled him back. They put out an APB for him. They got him back. And he argued that he still wanted to go. And they were all for sort of saying, no, you're going to be a family man. And he took the village pandit on in a detailed discussion. And the pandit lost. And his mother, Gurudev's mother, overheard the conversation and realised what high esteem the pandit held him in. And so she came out from behind the curtain where she'd been hiding and said, if you want to go, you go. To sing, what did she say? Sing the bhajan, do the bhajan for Bhagwan. But never become a
mendicant,
a beggar.
Yeah.
Never stretch your hand, which is very difficult, because if you're going to become a sadhu in India, how are you going to survive? She put the one thing on here. It sounds good what she said, but it's actually the biggest problem that you could give to somebody who's going out there with nothing, no bank account, no purse of money, to actually say, and don't reach out your hand. I wonder how you'd have survived if you couldn't go and ask somebody.
So he took to the spiritual life and became a sannyasin.
Not immediately. He several years he was roaming about, and he had some near misses meeting some good teachers, but he was a bit more than that. Some people would call him precocious in our language. He wasn't satisfied with their level of attainment, which, what's that about? You can't go judging these people, but he did. And he was then successful at accessing a sannyasi that he did respect, who would take him. And the first question that he said to him, bear in mind what his mum said to him, he said, can you teach me to live without stretching my hand out? And the rest is history. When he was a Shankaracharya, they had a notice put up saying, do not give any material gift. He would never accept anything. And when people tried to smuggle, you've read this, when anybody would try to smuggle stuff in because they felt they got good luck by meeting Gurudev, they'd try and put in like a gold coin or a few gold coins underneath the flowers as a floral offering and say, well, here. And then he'd find out about it, and he'd find out who put them in there and ban them. So that kind of catapulted back on them. He would not tolerate anybody giving anything. So it's a mystery, and it's one of those things that he managed to run 3-4 ashrams, a temple, a Sanskrit school. There's a kind of whole mythology emerged about, he must have the siddhi.
Yes, the power.
Special powers. But I wouldn't parade that. I think that's kind of, do we really need to go down that road? Do we really need to deify powers like that? I think it's all in the teachings. And he just wanted to be unsullied, because what he didn't want to do is to take on people's bad karma. And he felt that by giving him their impure earnings, that it would sullify him. Do you get me?
Yes, I do.
It was self-interest. He didn't want it. He said, give me your
vices.
He said, you people of Kanpur, you give me bags of...
He said, don't give me your money, give me your vices. Yeah.
Bags of jewels or whatever. Give me your vices. It sounds like Bob Geldof, doesn't it? We could do stand-up to put this all in Bob Geldof. Give us your vices, So he was the business, and he was very, very revered in his lifetime.
And if I may, so I'd be keen to take a few questions before we
Sure.
finish at 15:15. So he, at 72, he became Shankaracharya, is that right? Around about 72?
71, 72, yeah.
And then he died at 83, was it? Something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah. And on his death, he left a will naming his successors.
He left a will ahead of his death, but it sounds like he didn't tell anyone. Now, if we could pause on that, think about that through. He must have had an awareness that he was ill, because he'd been ill since he came back from Kashmir the previous year. And he'd been treated by various doctors, so there's no question that he knew he was ill physically. And he decided, after meeting the President of India, that he would write a will. And he named 4 candidates. He named Shantanand, then he named a Pandit, and then he named Vishnu Devanand, and then he named a 4th character whose name was Parmanand. And all hell broke loose. But I think he knew it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's why he didn't say ahead of time, because he knew there were forces at play. And he knew that his number 1 disciple had started a political party. He was very politically active, which isn't something a sannyasi does. That's more associated with kshatriya. It's more of a sort of, like a military type person would get involved in that. Sannyasis are more retiring. There's no way on earth that Shantanand would have started a political party with all the intrigues and all the arguments and all the lying.
Which is what Brahmananda wanted. He wanted Shantananda.
He wanted...
Yeah. He didn't want anybody who was political. He wanted somebody... Yeah.
And I believe he fell out. I have a little bit of evidence of that in one of the newsletters, that he refused to go to one of Kapatra's events.
Yeah, one of the rival camps.
Well, he wasn't a rival even. He was discounted. He was the original candidate, and he was discounted. And I think they fell out about it, but it was never made public. And somebody said to Brahmananda, well, is there some difference of opinion between Kapatri and yourself? And he said, I am the guru. There is no difference of opinion. There is no opinion. It's like, God, he's a heavy dude. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but pretty well that was what it was. It was like, whoa, okay. So there's no argument there, okay?
Okay.
I think he knew that I think that personally, Kapatri put Swarupanand in the ashram to get him entrenched in ashram affairs so that he will one day take over.
This is a rival candidate.
Well, he became a rival candidate. Swarupanand became the so-called rival candidate in about 75. I met his mob in 1978. So when I was sitting in a cave up in the mountains, and they came in, and I had to get out because I wasn't welcome there. So I get the idea. They don't like Westerners. They've got this mentality. Mm-hmm. We don't need to dwell on that.
No. So last question for me then, and I'd like to just open it to the audience, is just for... it came up last week where somebody asked you, what was it that Brahmananda taught or spoke? And you said...
Well, he was trying to revive everything about Vedic teaching. But he had more than one task. He was teaching the populace, all the people that came for darshan, the thousands of people He was ministering to the whole of North India. There are 4 Shankaracharyas of the 4 points of the compass, and he had all the millions of people in the north. So he has to kind of restore their birthright teaching. But to anybody that will come to him, he would teach them to meditate. So they got the real blessing. He would sit them down and teach them to meditate. And that was becoming more and more popular with people. It got more and more traction. And the brahmacharis were left with like tons of people having to check their meditations. And I think that's how come Maharishi felt that he was able to deal with it, because he'd had that sort of experience, as had Swarupanand, as the other teachers had. But so they're the same. Shantanand, Vishnudevanand, Vasudevanand, and Brahmanand, they've got the same task. They're all to be the embodiment of Adi Shankara. Adi Shankara means the first Shankara. Shankaracharya means the Acharya of Shankara. So the Acharya means something like good teacher or something like that. So in some time BC, about a few hundred years, 500 years, it seems that the first Shankara, Adi Shankara we call him, but the first one came. And then lots of iterations of Shankara. So we have tons of material. We don't know who wrote it. We say, Adi Shankara, Adi Shankara. But like, yeah, okay, which Adi Shankara? Which Acharya? And I say that because that's also the case with Brahmananda, with Shantananda, with Vishnudevananda, and now with Vasudeva. They all have the same task. And it's up to them how they choose to do it. And it was up to Shantanand how he expressed himself to you guys. So, guys and girls, neutral, right? Remember that. So you might find something different in the teaching style. You might read Brahmananda and you might say, no, this is different. But do bear in mind what unequivocal support Shantanand had for Brahmananda, even to the departure when he was saying, yeah, we're only getting anything by the grace of our Guru, Gurudev, Brahmananda. So let's not be divisive. It's partly why I'm here.
Yes.
I'm coming from a slightly different space.
Indeed.
Some people might say, oh, do you know what they get taught? Somebody's emailed me, and they've done that. They've said, look at this video, this is what these people learn. It's like, I don't even know that I'll watch it. I think I'll ask you maybe, or perhaps when we have a chat while we're walking, I'll say, oh, by the way. But maybe I won't ask, because at the root of it, we all want the same thing. We all want that little bit of adjustment to our physiology that makes us Advaitanand. It makes us in the moment and stops us pining for an existence that we miss or which was misspent, which stops us worrying about a future that might be horrible and might be good. We just want to be in the moment. And I sense that's what all you guys want, and that's what you're being taught, and that's why you're staying with it. So we have everything in common. And I'm pretty hostile to the idea of anybody being divisive. And I think this is the time to join together. One of my Facebook friends said, you're talking with our spiritual cousins.
Very nice.
That's what you are, spiritual cousins.
Spiritual cousins of the Brahmananda...
Well, I don't know, yeah. Even amongst... There's very few people who really understand the teachings of Brahmananda. And I hope to set it right. I'm working on a volume. I've written 100... Well, I haven't written them. I've compiled and written this stuff. 33 chapters. And I'm still tinkering. I still need to read it through. I'll need 2 read-throughs. Perhaps one of you people will help me read it through. Perhaps you'll have some remarks. I work all the time solo. I don't know anybody who I can trust. I don't know anybody I can show the Sanskrit to until today that I met Rutger. I don't know anybody because my contacts are so poor. I meet people, in the internet area, but they usually dud checks. They help me once and they're not there when I come back and say, oh, can you help me with this phrase? It's like they've gone all quiet. And I think that a lot of them just aren't very knowledgeable, that they're bluffing. And it's a shame. And I look at you guys and you're studying Sanskrit. I've met 2 Sanskrit scholars since on these 2 meetings.
Michael Delaney last week.
Pardon?
Michael Delaney last week, yeah.
That's 2 more than I knew before. I had a 0. I had a 0 count. And now I have 0 plus 2. I'm getting somewhere. Even if I never see any of you guys again, I'll hopefully have a couple of emails which I can say, and what about this verse? And can we tease this out together? Because I love the internet. I mean, it was set up by mutuality, for benefit, for free. And that's what we're doing. You know, this is only my 2nd time of public speaking. My first time was last week. And further, it's not my first opportunity. I have been offered before, but they wanted to pay a toll fee. They wanted to get people in on a ticket. And I've heard about, what's his name, Titmarsh, you know?
Alan Titchmarsh, yeah.
Alan Titchmarsh. And he charges a fortune to sit in a chair like this probably, and gets a fortune for sharing a few tidbits about his Titmarsh life and talking about flowers. And I'm with Brahmananda on this. Don't try that trick of trying to give me something. It's enough that you've been so hospitable last week and this week. It's such a joy, it really is. And I'm not saying that in a fluffy kind, it's such a joy. It's not scripted, it is such a joy. I'm 73 and I've never been invited to such a nice space. And I'm not talking about the building, but that's a plus. And to actually meet with this level of sincerity, I knew about you guys before. Okay, my brother Raymond was a member of the London one. My ex-missus and her boyfriend, the guy who did Baker Street, do you know that? Do you know that one?
Yeah.
They were both members. And for some reason, they never said, you ought to be down there. It's your thing too. Nobody's ever said that. But I've had meetings with people. I had the guy from the Study Society, Anthony Kedros, fly down. He's actually flew his plane, a Cessna, to come and see me. I was impressed. It's like, I mean, you guys fly planes to come and see someone. Wow, you know, it's a whole new level. Last week I was walking around the ground and I'm seeing people with like chainsaws. People who you would think would be more comfortable sitting in an armchair, talking about the old days. You know.
That was Alan Campbell with the
It's like, I was talking with somebody this evening and we're in the middle of a discussion and he suddenly got up, he said, I've got to go and wash the dishes. It's like the ethos here is just off the radar. And I speak with experience. I've entered into other people's spaces. I know exactly what the movement, what I call the movement, the Maharishi's organisation, I know exactly what they're about. I could be tested on a lie detector and I know exactly what. And they're basically very entitled. They, you know, to a person, they're just sitting there. They ain't going to do the washing up. And they're certainly not going to fly their own plane. It's far too dangerous. And they're definitely not going anywhere near a chainsaw. So on all counts, you're winning. So I don't care what it is that you're doing, because it must be good. I mean, like, how do you evaluate somebody? Do you check that they're doing exactly the same as what TM is doing? It's like, I think that's a technicality. I think the very fact that you're so keyed into all these very important things is blindingly impressive to a visitor like me, really. Anyway, question answer time.
Yeah, well, I look to our deputy manager, Tom. What time should we finish at? I would stay. All right. We have time for a question or two?
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
5 minutes, is that okay?
Yeah,
is that all right? Conal, you had your...
Yeah, firstly, thank you so much for your authenticity. Yeah, it's been a wonderful evening, really wonderful. My question is, Shantananda and Maharishi both came out of the Guru Dev ashram, but they seem, I could be wrong, they seem to have parted ways. Is there anything you could say about that?
Just no.
No, they haven't. Or no, you don't.
Yeah, I'm a man of few words, as you now know. No. No. Okay, let's look at that. Okay, it's two people never always get on well. I know that. And you can have different attitudes towards different things. Should people eat ice cream? And if they do, how much? And should they eat flavoured ice creams? You know, like at a very simple level, we can disagree about just about everything. And I think when Shantanand took over your organisation, if that's what he did, I don't think Maharshi was very pleased about it. He wanted to run the SES, you know that. Francis Rolls got wind of that. And Francis, being an astute guy, came back from Wales, where he was holidaying, and parked himself in the room when Maharishi came in and stopped the takeover. True or false?
Yeah, that's so Jeffrey said.
Yeah, well, that's how the story came through to me. He wanted it, and why shouldn't he? Because he's a very powerful, clever, well-motivated man. And SCS was doing everything for Maharishi. They put him on at the Albert Hall. They promoted him. They published everything for him. They did a ripping job of supporting him. And they got him taken... He took off. He got his own little Cessna. He started really winning over the public after his Royal Albert Hall appearance, which the SCS organised. So, yeah, there was some friction, I guess, between Shantanand and Mahesh, but no big deal. It was like two strong people. They always agreed. And Shantanand always deferred to Maharishi. It's a fact. And obviously he got his own opinion. You know, like, okay.
So Shantanand deferred to Maharishi, or Maharishi deferred to Shantanand?
No, actually Shantanand deferred to Maharishi always. And in later life, after Shantanand retired in, what are we saying, 78, or was it 70?
Around then, yeah.
78. Maharishi started to bug him. I want you to come with me and come around the world and tell people all about meditation. And he said, on your bike, in Hindi, or roughly that. He said, look, I've spent all my life in India. And, you know, I'm going to die in Benares. Like, you know, that's where you die. If you're in it, it's like, it's a death city. You're acclimatized from birth to think that. And he put up a bit of resistance, so you could say they fell out. But Maharishi just kept on sending people down there to pester him. And he said, look, you can't do that. You can't go abroad because sannyasi will lose their status. even an individual loses their status. Mahatma Gandhi was threatened to lose his caste when he went to London to become a lawyer, and his whole caste went mad at him and said, you won't have a caste when you come back to India. And he basically said, in Hindi or Gujarati, on your bike. So he went and he became Mahatma Gandhi, didn't he? He wasn't then, but he became so-called Mahatma. And Shantanand took time, but he agreed. He thought, yeah, right. Where are we going to go? Butlins, Disneyland? No, he didn't say that. They went abroad. He went with Maharishi. He went to China.
Africa. Yeah.
To where?
Africa as well.
Africa.
Yeah. Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. More.
And
Vasudevanand was along with him. So Vasudevanand isn't some mysterious figure who's appeared, who's a self-seeking individual. He was his loyal assistant all along. He's in all the pictures, isn't he, as you pointed out earlier. He just had black hair. He hadn't hadn't gone all silver like us lot. So no, there wasn't a division. And they were good buddies. It's very easy to read that. And he gave TMers a hard time because they went off there in a bus in 1978 to see him. So that would have been the time to sort of, like, if we're going to say there was a fallout, he set them an exam. He wanted to test that all of them were really like knowers of reality. Not a lot of people know this, do they?
I didn't know that, yeah.
And that's pretty harsh when they're all just floating along with, his rishiness, to suddenly be treated to an examination. And he meant it. And I think that's cool.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Conor. Tom, should we... we're way over time, really.
I think we should probably,
like that, yeah. So thank you. Paul will be here tomorrow. He flies out. He'll be leaving around lunchtime. So he loves a cup of tea, 2 sugars. He'd love one now if somebody'd like to make him one after the talk. So he would. I think he really enjoys meeting people. So please do say hello. So I'm sorry we couldn't take more questions, but I think that was really.
We didn't have many questions.
Half past 9.
It's a bewitching hour.
Yeah. Last week Paul did ask, he sat down here in front of the audience and asked if I would take a photograph, but I didn't ask anybody. I gave him the photograph, which he has, but I didn't ask anybody if it would be okay to share it. So, if is it okay if Paul he sits down at your feet, take a photograph with Shantananda in the background? Would that be okay? If he would, he loves to share things. So, would anybody object? And is that okay?
Because we'll airbrush them out.
Yeah.
We'll say, what's that light emerging? It's where Dorothy was sitting.
what happened to your girlfriend? Your Italian girlfriend.
So,
and I have to thank you for being such a great audience, because I've never done this sort of thing before. I like music, so that's kind of different. Actually being a talking head, I've never had this experience live other than last week, and it's very gratifying to see the change where people are sort of composed, waiting to hear this serious speaker, and they're kind of like, okay, and then they kind of let that go, and it's like, oh, that was funny, or that was interesting, and it's funny to see a sort of transforming that everybody's like, we're all just together.
Spiritual cousins.
Spiritual cousins. Whoa. Yeah, last week I objected to sitting on that throne, but it's really nice. If you've got a bad back, that's where.
And I was told to do a pano. Is that okay?
Yeah.
If I go this way, so. Mark, if you run around, you could be at both ends. Just tell me to go to the window, but I'll be able to edit that out. Okay. So thank you very much.
Can you take a few still?
I'll take it.
Your chair's going.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't need this. If you hear a funny clicking sound.
So thank you all very much. Should we pause? We should pause.
Thank you. I'll do it now.
Just do a little pause, yeah. In the customary fashion. All right, well, thank you all. Let's just fall still. Surrender all of that to the one self in the hearts of all. Om Paramatmane Nama. E.T. Thank you.
Meditation at 6.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful.